Analyst Gogo Aubrey Matshiqi, and he's in studio just to give us a breakdown of what he thinks is going to happen. Thanks very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So, 3 o'clock, we're hoping to hear from Mmusi Maimane. What is the expectation on your side?
Well, first of all, it doesn't seem like this is going to be a DA media conference.
Yes.
And that is the first indication that he may be announcing his departure. And therefore the delay must have been about, as I keep on saying, dissuading him from leaving. If we're correct in assuming that he's going to leave, the next question is, what else is he going to announce? Is he going to announce that he is retiring from politics? Now he's too young to do that, but he may. Is he going to announce that he's joining another party? And if he is, which parties is he going to join?
Yes.
There can only be two, either the ANC or the EFF. Does that make sense? Another thing he may announce is the formation of a new party, because if he does leave the DA, it is highly unlikely he's going to leave alone.
So, the other day, on Monday, when Herman Mashaba made his announcement of no longer being the mayor of Johannesburg and leaving the DA, did you think it was there was something off with the fact that Mmusi Maimane was there, and also the fact that he called Mashaba his hero at a time where Mashaba was, as my colleague Natasha Piri says, laying out the dirty linen of the DA?
Well, if I were in the leadership of the DA, I would have been quite perturbed by what happened at the press conference Mashaba called, because it was very clear that he was aligning himself with Mashaba's cause, whatever cause that is, and was creating a distance either between himself and the party as a whole, or between himself and a particular faction in the DA. The effect of the second is the same as the first.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're brothers in arms. Maybe he's fond of him and he just decided to be there. Or you read more into it than that? Well,
there were other things that were strange about the press conference. If you listen to the statements that Mashaba was making, talking about how he cannot be part of a party that he refuses to accept that race remains an indicator of advantage and disadvantage in South Africa, how this DA, as evidenced by the election of Helen Zille as federal council, is a party that has been infiltrated by a right-wing agenda. Now this comes from the former president of the Free Market Foundation, which is not even a liberal entity, but is a libertarian entity on the right of the DA itself. So there is an element of Orwellian manipulation that we are going to see, as we saw on Monday. So I refuse to believe that the only reason Herman Mashaba left the DA and is resigning as mayor of Joburg is because Helen Zille was elected federal council chair. I think if rumors inside the party are anything to go by, his position in the DA caucus in Joburg had become untenable, and in fact was quite close to the door himself. So he had to make a choice between being pushed out or jumping out.
So if we make the assumption that come 3 o'clock, Mmusi Maimane is going to leave the DA in its entirety, the leadership and the party, what's the way forward for the DA? Might they as well just pack up and go home? Because surely this then presents an opportunity for the likes of the ANC and especially the EFF.
Well, let's start with what Helen Zille says. Helen Zille says, without the DA, our democracy will die. Now that is a patently nonsensical statement, because history doesn't work that way. As some say, history is it's a repetition of error, folly, and correction. And at the moment, the DA is going through a period of folly. And the question is, what kind of correction will follow? I think we're not close to correction as far as the DA at the moment is concerned. We are close to more folly on its part. So when the correction does come, does it come in the form of a split? How How will that split be configured? Will it be along racial lines? Will it be along ideological lines? Will it be along policy lines? Or are we going to see some overlaps? And if we see some overlaps, what will be the preponderance of the configuration of the split? Now, we keep on saying that what is happening in the DA is not only about race. Now, of course, those who support Helen Zille and Helen Zille herself will say it's not about race.
Yeah.
My argument is that it is not only about race, but in the main, if you go back to 1999 and look at what has happened to the DA since 1999, in the main, it is about race and how in racial terms and in terms of a fictitious agenda of non-racialism, the DA has been misrepresenting itself to black voters.
In terms of the city of Johannesburg, with Herman Mashaba having announced his resignation and leaving the DA, are we likely to see a leadership vacuum or not? Are you confident that we are going to get a seamless transition and we're going to have leadership at Johannesburg City?
Well, I mean, some names are being thrown about. If you assume that the mayor will come from the DA, it's not a given.
No.
That the mayor will come from the DA. Remember, 72% of voters in Johannesburg did not vote for the DA in 2016. So that's another way of looking at what happened. And if you take into account the fact that 72% of voters in Joburg did not vote for the DA in the last local government election, it is therefore not a given that the mayor will come from the DA. There is a possibility that the ANC and the EFF might combine with some other parties to create a new majority, even if that majority is not a coalition arrangement. Now, of course, the EFF will have to calculate what that means for it in 2021, because clearly there was, to some extent, a vote of no confidence against the ANC in Johannesburg. What do voters who don't see the ANC as a solution in Joburg do in 2021 if the EFF goes into coalition with the ANC? And if that coalition happens, or some kind of other alliance or other political arrangement happens, in return for what does the EFF go into either a strategic or tactical alliance with the ANC in Joburg?
And how possible is that? I mean, only the other day we had Mbuyiseni Ndlozi of the EFF come here and say that when Herman Mashaba took over the Johannesburg city, he uncovered a lot of corruption to the tune of billions of rand that he blamed or put at the door of the ANC. Now, if he can say that in a public fora, how on earth are they going to be able to work together and govern a city?
Politics is the art of the possible. And they say revolution is the art of the impossible. Politics is not about the art of the impossible. It's the art of the possible. And therefore, the reason politicians carry bags is because those bags are full of principles. If you don't like one principle, they can offer you another one.
And then coming back to the announcement of Mmusi Maimane, if he were to announce that he's going to leave the DA and set up another party, you said that you feel that he would be setting up his own thing. Why do you say that?
Well, it's only one scenario among several.
Yeah. But do you think he would have support and other people would follow him?
There's something strange about South African politics. If the devil were to walk out of hell and condemn state capture and corruption, he'd be declared an angel. That's how South African politics works at the moment. Now, people have forgotten about all the criticism that was leveled at Mmusi Maimane as one who defended the internal logic of racism in the DA. And now that he has become a victim of how the DA misrepresented itself to black people and black voters in particular, now he is an angel because he is a victim. Now, the DA knew before the May 8 election. And it knew, because of its own internal research, that Maimane as a brand does very little for the DA brand. In fact, Herman Mashaba did more for the DA brand than Maimane, irrespective of the fact that many in the DA leadership thought Mashaba is illiberal.
Why do you say that when he had showdowns with the former president Jacob Zuma, and he was given the pulpit to literally exchange with the ANC and be a voice of the DA, and he appeared to be a leader in control? Let's
be literal. Let's talk about the ACDP. It is a party that represents Christian values. About 80% of South Africans profess to be Christians. Why is this not reflected in the support for the ACDP? So as much as Mmusi Maimane screamed at the ANC, screamed at Jacob Zuma because of their corruption and so-called state capture, this did not translate into a certain level of electoral support as desired by the party. The same can be said to some extent about the EFF. People, particularly black people, find the messaging of the EFF quite attractive. It resonates with them, particularly its take on the racial political economy of South Africa, or the political economy of race in South Africa. So the EFF enjoys a lot of support when it comes to how it talks about the political economy of race in this country. Does that translate to a requisite level of electoral support? No.
In terms of the EFF, when we talk about the EFF, to whom do they appeal? Is it young people, or if you look at black people who are middle class, who are getting on in life and they can afford to pay for school fees and all of that, to whom do they appeal? Because like you say, their political economy message will appeal to somebody perhaps who's not doing so well in life, or has certain aspirations. But in any economy in the world, as you advance, sometimes your political leanings also change.
Yeah. But this is the South African economy.
Of course.
The structure of which remains patently white and untransformed, with the help of the ruling party to some extent. Now, when you look at to whom the EFF appeals, the picture is very complex. It's not a simple or simplistic picture, because the EFF does appeal to some who are black professionals, and does so for a very specific reason. South Africa's corporate spaces remain to some extent racist, alienating if you are a black professional, and alien. And in protest against that, some who are black professionals will vote for the EFF.
Yeah.
The working class, elements of the working class vote for the EFF. Elements of the poor vote for the EFF. Young people, it's difficult to talk about them because young people, while I dismiss the argument that they are apathetic, we should look at other reasons why they do not register, and if they are registered, why they do not vote. Some young people vote for the EFF. You even have older people voting for the EFF. What we can quibble about is the extent to which each constituency votes for the EFF. But when I look at the picture of who votes for the EFF, who supports the EFF, two things. It's a complex picture, and secondly, the EFF enjoys more support than is suggested by its electoral performance.
A two-pronged question now before we conclude. Mmusi Maimane goes, he announces it this afternoon, we suspect. Who's going to take over from him as DA leader? And then fast forward to 2021, what are the local government elections going to look like? Is the EFF going to be more victorious than it has been in previous elections?
You can ask another question. Does it matter? Because there's an extent to which, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter. Too much damage has occurred. And in the fight for the soul of the DA, the question we have to ask is whether the election of Helen Zille as Federal Council Chair suggests that the DA intends going back to the pre-Tiens Botha period. Tiens Botha was a verkrampt former NNP member who became a leader of the DA in the Western Cape. Or does the DA want to go back to the pre-Maimane period? In other words, with the formation of the DA absorbed the conservative white elements,
yes,
which diluted what some saw as its ideological purity as a liberal party. With Helen Zille growing the party, she did so by blackening the party to some extent. And that itself caused both some ideological disruption and at a racial level caused discomfort to those inside the party who were happy to have black voters and black members as long as whiteness as a dominant reality and factor is not disrupted.
Don't you think all of this is going to make not only the youth apathetic towards politics and voting, but the rest of us?
Well, when I ask, does it matter who the DA elects, I ask the same with regard to the ANC, and I ask the same to some extent with regard to the EFF. If you look at participation rates in our elections, it's very clear that South Africans are withdrawing from electoral process.
Yeah.
In other words, the level of trust in political parties across the board has been on the wane. In fact, there is a bigger problem. It seems to me the reason why young people are withdrawing and why other voters too are withdrawing, as evidenced by the participation rates, is because they look at the disjuncture between what our democracy promises on the one hand, what our constitution promises on the one hand, and their lived reality, characterized by poor social and economic conditions.
That's what I thought. All right, Gogo Aubrey Matshiqi, thank you very much for your time, sir.